Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, and a wonderful Sunday afternoon, night, morning, whatever time zone you're in. It is August 19th, 2018. I want to congratulate everybody who's on our program tonight and welcome. Remember, we are here every Sunday, or most Sundays, at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, all time zones in between and around the world. We have listeners of this program from many, many places, and I welcome, put your comments as I'm talking, put your comments in the live stream of Facebook. We are going through, Matthew, hello. We are working through Kardec Radio Facebook page. So I recommend everyone please join Kardec Radio Facebook page. They also have Kardec Radio, a web page that you can look at from many other different spiritist speakers, wonderful programs. Also programs will be live on, we're streaming live at various times on Kardec Radio Facebook page. And then you can also go to my own page, which is nwspiritism.com. You'll see it right on the bottom banner here, which you can then access many other spiritist resources. Again, Spiritism brought to you by, codified, I should say, Allan Kardec. Allan Kardec worked with many mediums throughout Europe, and the mediums were led by the Spirit of Truth, as promised in the New Testament. I will send you a consoler and give you more information. This is what Spiritism is. We don't live in a static universe. Oh, Maria Viega, hello. We don't live in a static universe, and the spirit world knows that. We, as humans, go through, different cultures, different technological advances. And, during the time of the Old Testament and New Testament, there was a certain level of technological advance, a certain level of culture and understanding, and they could only tell us what we thought we could absorb. In the 1850s, Allan Kardec was given a lot of more information through mediums throughout Europe, and he only used the same. He only wrote down and codified, he's called the codifier of Spiritism, when he had the same or similar type messages from two or more mediums about the same subject. He wrote a series of 1,019 questions. He also wrote other books too. And of course, you can go to my website, nwspiritism.com. And this is actually one of my favorite second book of his, is The Gospel According to Spiritism. Wonderful. Just a wonderful book. All the things you didn't understand when you read the parables in the Bible, like, I'm not quite sure what that means. This explains them. It's just a great book. Now, the great thing on that is you go to my site, nwspiritism.com, and you click on his picture up on the top right, Allan Kardec, right there. Click on his picture. You will go to the EDI CEI bookstore. You'll find all his books. You'll find books by Chico Xavier, Devaldo Franco, Yvonne Piera, others. And you can buy books there. You can also buy them, of course, through Amazon.com. And of course, this is the book we're talking about today. Within the section of this book is how we are guided by spirits. This is why we are talking today. We're talking about the future. And of course, everyone's interested in the future. That's our own future. We'd love to know our future. And so there's a lot. This is why Spiritism, it's not easy for a lot of people, because there's a couple things. One is we are so much closer to the spirit world. Now, when I was growing up, I believed in God. I wasn't ever an atheist, but I believed in a God that was far away. Like, we're in a little spot in the universe. Were we that important? Probably looked on us every 10,000 years or so, right? That's the way I felt. I'm sure a lot of other people have much more mature attitudes, but I didn't. But when I learned about Spiritism, I learned that we are really just intricately involved with spirits. They look at us, they plan our future. Those are, the benevolent, the good spirits who plan us. There's also all sorts of lower level spirits around us that, why are they allowed to be around us? You think, well, why would God let us to be in this kind of iffy atmosphere? Well, because we're supposed to learn how to filter out their suggestions, right? They're like suggestions you get when you're in 7th or 8th grade and all your friends have the dumbest things. Say, yeah, let's do this. Let's jump off this cliff, right? I mean, this is what we're we're supposed to learn how not to listen to other people, which is interesting, is it not? So, excuse me. So Spiritism. So if you look at what Spiritism essentially tells us, we are on a campus called Earth. We are here to learn, to become more mature, eventually to become pure spirits. And pure spirits means we are heart, we are full of love, fraternity. We have wisdom and knowledge, and we love to give more than to receive. So these are all important aspects. So this is episode 4, and this is on the future. So I've been talking about how in the previous episodes is how the spirit world builds our future, right? Builds and when I mean our future, I'm talking about the future of the world, the future of cultures, the future of nations, and how they lead us. And the future is built not with a straight line going to a place, but spirals, right? We kind of go backwards, but when we go backwards, say the destruction of Rome, it creates a foundation to go much higher the next time. This is how it's built. Now, we get down into the micro manipulation by the spirit world, and that is us. The spirit world knows what is and what will happen to you. And this, I just like to quickly, I've told this before, but I just want to go through it one time. This was really how I found Spiritism. When my wife told me certain things that were going to happen, and I go through a lot of it in my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, of how I found out this. And she had heard this back when she was, in her teens, and I married her when she was 31. She knew she was going to marry, someone, and then she actually kind of knew each stage of my life. And I didn't listen to her till she said something so specific that it came true, which is I thought, well, there's no way, my wife's Brazilian. There's no way this woman from Brazil would know that. And it brought me on to, and if you want to know the story, please read my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism. It's all in there. And it goes on, and it also tells you how I kind of started seeing the signs and signals of the spirit world and how they brought me to where I'm at. But the main thing was my revelation was, oh my heavens, the future is written, not precisely, not every little thing, but it's written as I would say you could look at it as you're in high school or junior high, and the bell rings and you go to one class and you have to sit through that class. And so the class itself is mostly predestined. I'm sure there's some spirits say everything's predestined, but I'm not sure about that. The class itself is predestined, but your attitude, how you participate, how much you help other people, that is up to you. And now the whole series of books, which is How We Are Guided by Spirits right here. I've written this book on what a wonderful author, Spiritist author. He never called himself a Spiritist, but everything he said was Spiritism, was the Reverend G. Vale Owen. So how did I find it? Why do I say Reverend G. Vale Owen was a Spiritist when he never said he was a Spiritist? So I will tell you that because I think this is important. There's a book my wife was reading, and it was in Portuguese. It's not yet translated into English. And then my wife said, "There, you need to look at this." I said, "What?" And she had actually just finished the book. And he goes, "Yes, and in this book, there's a gathering of Spiritists, and they actually listed who was at this gathering of Spiritists." Now, of course, Spiritism started with Allan Kardec in France, but really, it went through a period where it was pretty well known throughout the world. And in fact, during G. Vale Owen's time, they really they kind of got away. The Christianity, the Catholic Church, kind of damped it down, but they were still full of spiritualism, not spiritism, but spiritualism. And in this book, they had a list of people who were at this gathering in the spirit world. And so in modern times, which is around after 1910, Spiritism really started getting on into Brazil. thanks to a lot of it was Chico Xavier, but there was other people, precursor, that kind of started these things. But in this book, on the list, it was, Spanish names, Portuguese names, and then there was almost like the last page of the last person listed on the book was the Reverend G. Vale Owen. I go, well, who's this guy? Who's the Reverend G. Vale Owen? And then I researched it and I found out, and he had these series of 4 books, and actually other books after that, and it was and they collapsed these 4 books. They called them The Life Beyond the Veil, and I read that, and it was just revelatory. In fact, and it's complementary. It doesn't cover, well, somewhat it does. It doesn't cover the exact same ground of what you read in Allan Kardec's book, which is very important, Chico Xavier's or other people's. It's a different way. He's really showing the process and organization of the higher levels of heaven. He shows, the lower levels and what's going on there. But to me, the fascinating, one of the most fascinating things is what's happening, is how is heaven organized? It's different levels, and we go through different levels and we learn different things. So I just want to bring this in. So now let's talk about each one of us. So the Reverend G. Vale Owen talked to a high spirit called Zabdiel, and he tells us how the different levels of spiritual spheres track and interact with us. Remember, so you start at the first level of heaven, and as you become more spiritually mature, wisdom, there's different schools and colleges and classes, and you keep going up and up, and your power. It's not like a university where you get this piece of paper. When you graduate, you actually get more tools in your toolbox. You actually become more powerful. And as I said before, the spirit world thought is action. So this is what he said. Moreover, friend, it is a good thing and a helpful to bear in mind our presence at all times, for we are near, and that in ways both many and various. When we are personally near at hand, we are able to impress you with helpful thoughts and intuitions, and to order events that your work may be facilitated and your way more clear than otherwise it would appear to you. When in person, we are in our own spheres. We still have means whereby we are informed not alone of what has happened in and around you, but also what is about to happen. I'm going to repeat that. What is about to happen? Remember, in the spirit world, time is different, right? They see the past, future, present. You see more of that as the higher you go. If the composition of circumstances pursue its normal course. So let's read that last part of the sentence again. Let it sink in. The spirit world knows our future. And now quote, but also what is about to happen if the composition of circumstances pursue its normal course. So what I get out of it is we are told that the future is known, but not 100% accurate at any given time. And why is that? Because we have been given free will. And if you look at free will, it's the most wonderful thing in the world, because we are given we're not ants, right? We are independent spirits who are allowed to learn the lessons that we kind of, and interpret the lessons we have on our own. And if you look at free will is so wonderful, but also free will is the cause of all the tragedy, the bad things that happen, the good things, all that is because we are allowed to learn at our own pace. So when you see good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people, it's a combination of free will and karma, reincarnation, right? Reincarnation from having learned lessons from past lives into your present or future lives. And it's a lot is free will, because that's how the whole process is. The process is to create all of us as pure spirits, but it's not an easy process. It's not a process like, take this little multiple choice test and you're a pure spirit. No, you have to completely reform your personality and your character. You have to remove the blemishes. You have to remove envy and hate and jealousy. We're not on earth to become intellectual giants. We're not on earth to become billionaires. We are on earth to reform our inner character. And to do that sometimes takes pain. Hopefully, if you're smarter than I am, you won't have to have too much pain. So But once events deviate from a planned path, a new future is formulated, and that becomes our destiny. So this is very dynamic. Our lives are predestined, right? Predetermined, but preset with required course changes to fix and to fit the environment and choices we have made. It's very interesting. If you look at this, you'll look at near-death experiences, NDEs, and you'll see, in many, many instances, people who go to a higher place will go and they'll meet with a group and they'll say, okay, let's go through what you've been doing so far. Okay, and then they'll look at the different episodes and they'll say, well, do you think you're ready to come here? Do you want to, or do you think you should go back? And of course, all the people that report their episodes say, and agree. Sometimes they don't want to go back, but then their mentors say, I think you have more to learn, is they come back. And that's because, if you're in school and you say, and it's like you're taking out a class to go to the vice principal's office and go, well, I don't think you're working hard enough. You're not quite where we want you to be. And they'll give you something else. This is why we're on. This is why, and I wrote a book, the Spirit World Talks to Us, is when people have NDEs, it's really like, okay, we're going to take you out of class, we're going to talk to you, and if we all agree, and if you don't agree, usually we kind of explain to you why you should go back. And invariably, these people are more spiritual because it changed them, right? And but all of that NDE was a predestined event. They usually agree to, okay, at this time when you're 45 or 55, we're going to take you out and then either, evaluate you. Now, and again, think of it when we are trying to think of the computing power that all this must take, is where they know everything's going to happen. And then a little variable change because you made this free will choice, and then they recompute everything and everyone intersects. I mean, this shows you that, heaven, when most people think of heaven, when I used to think of heaven, it's just, ethereal place, the Elysian fields, it is so much more than this is what Spiritism brings to you. It brings you an understanding of the complexity and the amount of involvement that we are in now. So on our future, let's keep on our future. Dates are hard to pin down. Now, this is something that people don't understand. When there's mediums meetings, right, and people are talking, they say, okay, well, when am I going to get married? And they should say, is, well, you're going to get married March 4th in 2021. No, that's not how. Remember, in the spirit world, time is different. And we have to understand that. They're not going to tell you that. And they're not going to tell you your future because you have to. It's like a teacher telling you the answers to the test. You have to strive. You're not there to have an easy life. I'm sorry to say that. It shocked me too. I'm not there to have an easy life. We're here to go through episode after episode to help us become a much better person. So what I'm trying to say is, while the episodes we must travel through are predetermined, the exact timing is not. In fact, there's a great question in the Spirits book. And they're saying, I think it was in the Spirits book, they're saying, okay, if you're supposed to be, actually it was in one of Andre Luis's by Chico Xavier's book. If you were supposed to be your future, you're supposed to be murdered. So how does that work? I mean, are you going to punish the person who's going to, because you're going to have someone murder you. And so was that person predestined to murder you? And then that person is predestined to live that bad karma because you predestined he would murder you? He or she would murder you? And the answer was very interesting. They said, no, we're going to put you in proximity to a person who has the capacity or the want to murder you. They don't have to murder you. If they do, then it's done. If they decide not to and go the better road, we'll put you close to another person who may murder you. See how it works? Very complex, is it not? And to get that person in proximity, close to where that person is, they will kind of guide you and close doors and open other doors. You're like this rat in a maze sometimes. You're just going to be going through these areas and you'll get to where they want you to be so you can be murdered. Think about that for a second. And then, now, that's a really hard example, but think of other examples. think about on your own life, little things that like the house you bought, right? You probably liked other houses, but it's like and this happened to my wife and I. And then, but everything you wanted was like, oh, no, too late. And it was like when we wanted to buy a house, everything was always closed at the last moment until we got to the house that the spirit world wanted us to be. And then it was like everything was easy, right? Sometimes people make travel plans. I know this one couple, she's a medium, and she started discovering spiritism. And then she wanted to go to Brazil. And then when she made those plans, everything just, and she wanted to go and get this certain thing, but it was really close. But everything just opened up. Everything just worked. When you make plans and everything just works like just great, you are on the path you should be. If you make plans and things just keep one obstacle after another, now it's hard. Now, because this is hard because you don't want to just give up and be someone who's like just passive, right? You're supposed to be aggressive. You're supposed to make plans. You're supposed to try it. That's why it's not easy. You have to kind of judge that you need to try as well as you can, but then you also need to know, like, if your conscience is telling you, I'm not sure about this, right? This may be a little bit wrong or something like that. Then you look for those signs and signals and know that that's not the path you were meant to be. So now let's talk about time. Let's talk about an example of the complexity of referencing time on Earth to the spirit world. Now, there's an interesting segment from a book, A Wanderer in the Spirit Lands, by the spirit Francesco. The medium who transcribed this book was A. Farnese, and the book was published in 1896. And my spiritist friend in Brazil, Geraldo Goulart, sent me the PDF of this book. And the spirit Francesco asked his spirit mentor how long a task would take him to finish. He wanted to know the length of time in relation to Earth time. So this is really interesting. Now, this was in all the books I've read, Vale Owen, Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier. This was like the best explanation and made the most sense. And this is what he was told. Just, no, it will last but a short time, 2 or 3 weeks of Earth time. For behold, as I shadow it forth to you, meaning like foreshadow, I see following it fast the image of your returning spirit. So let me stop for a second. So he doesn't just see a spirit, right? He sees a little bit of the past. He sees the present of the person he's talking to, and he sees that person going and coming back. In fact, I've read about NDEs where a person will come to NDE and they'll just see like a sequence of events. And that's why it's so hard for us to interpret dreams, right? Because we see the interpretation, and I can get into this much more later, but this is like, if you ever read, and I have an article on my blog site, nwspiritism.com, about the allegory of the cave, recorded by Plato, said by Socrates. And it just shows you that's why our dreams are hard to interpret, right? It's mostly you got to take the emotion of the dreams, because we're in this 4D world, but our brains can only kind of understand 3D, and it's difficult. So let me finish. I shadow it forth to you. I see it following fast the image of your returning spirit, showing that the two events are not separated by a wide interval. In the spirit world, where time is not reckoned by days or weeks or counted by hours, we judge of how long an event will take to accomplish or when an occurrence will happen by seeing how near or how far away they appear, and also by observing whether the shadow cast by the coming event touches the earth or is yet distant from it. Now, interesting. When we try to judge as nearly as possible of what will be its corresponding time as measured by earthly standards, even the wisest of us may not always be able to do this with perfect correctness. Thus, it is as well for those who communicate with friends on earth not to give an exact date for foreseen events, since many things may intervene to delay it and thus make the date incorrect. An event may be shown very near, yet instead of continuing to travel to the mortal at the same speed, it may be delayed or held in suspense, and sometimes even turned aside altogether by a stronger power than the one which had set it in motion. So think about this. I haven't seen a better explanation of the difficulty of dating events to Earth time than the one above. Imagine living in a world where time doesn't move forward, only change of status. And I think reading these things, I understand why the spirit world put me into computer science, because really, when you look at programming in computer science, is I got an article from Matthew. Said, my guess being that time sort of functions on two dimensions instead of one. For example, choosing to spend 20 years on Monday and then 30 years on Tuesday. Well, I see your point of view, Matthew, but it's really one event to another event, because that's really the way it is, right? It's this event will happen and this event will happen. The timing is up to our free will, and the timing is somewhat up to input from above on how they want to put each person. And so there's no time. There's only sequence of events. That's why we mature mentally, not physically. When people go back to heaven, they look how they believe they should look. But so there's no time changing, but there's status happens, right? We go from one level to another level. But you're right. So, but I agree with your saying is that time is you see time, and this is kind of what he's saying, which is really interesting. When he says is, then he sees the connections coming down, right? And he sees these future events coming down to that person on Earth. And then he, sometimes sees it maybe coming fast or maybe going slow. And I kind of see that as a huge database. This is why I believe we live in this constructed logical theory. And it's kind of moving us as far as changing our events. But then those, in our perspective, those events have time happening because we live in a time-based world. And therefore, in other words, things do happen. People learn, people meet new friends, and people go on missions to Earth. When I mean people, I mean spirits. But the clock doesn't move forward. It doesn't move because time doesn't advance. Plants don't decay in the spirit world. Houses don't fall down over time. Bridges don't rust. Objects are altered only when a spirit wills them to change, not because years have passed. Then you tossed in that a spirit must determine the current approximate time on Earth. And at the moment someone is asking for a future date, the event must be correlated with a future event that may or may not occur, which then must be translated into another time and date on Earth. One then begins to understand the complexity of supplying an answer that we on Earth think should be easy, right? They should know events. So this is, I hope this helps, because it's very complex. Another reason is when you see people who prophesize, they'll say, okay, this volcano will erupt and then this will happen. They don't really say in June, this is going to happen. They say, okay, look for this event. And then after that event, another event will happen. Now, of course, we on Earth think something happens. Like, when my wife was told about and had her NDE and saw her future, of course, being very young, she thought everything, okay, well, I should, a couple of months, I should meet this guy and we'll get married and so on and so forth. And of course, like about 10 years later, it happened. So this is what you never know when you have these dreams or you have these messages from the spirits. Don't get too excited, right? These things take time. You see that all the time in the Bible. So the spirits will say, oh yeah, this is going to happen. And then, then 7 years later, it happens, right? To us, we like things happening like the next day or the next hour or the next week. We get a little bit anxious, by a month, and then we give up, eventually. So, but these will happen. It's very, my wife and I laugh at that. We've been told other things, and then it took years, right? Years and years and years. And then, oh, okay, now we understand what they said. So now there's also different levels of predetermination. And again, this is interesting because this is really telling you how we are organized here and what's important, what's not so important, etc. Spiritists recognize that we are put on Earth to travel through a predetermined set of trials, which I've said before. We also have free will in how we choose and react to those trials. While at the same time, the spirit world is busy planning the forward motion of our whole planet. So we have our own little trials. Then there's trials of maybe the city, of the country, of the politicians doing our country, of the company we work for, even companies have spirit mentors, even companies have karma. So the spirit realm has set many souls on the earth to perform vital tasks, missions with a purpose to advance our society. The complexity of planning is beyond our imagination. Try and visualize the number of factors that go into just one life, not to mention the order of magnitude variables when you add in intersections of other lives. I mean, just think, when you went to college and then you wanted to get a job, and then all of a sudden Uncle Max called and said, hey, why don't you go talk to this guy? And then boom, you had this job, right? I doubt that was a random event. I said, okay, we'll take this person. He's going to finish this college. He's going to go work in this industry. And we'll get him introduced to it by, his father talking to Uncle Max, and Uncle Max will call him, and that's how we'll do it. Think about that for a second. Now, before I found Spiritism, before my wife, told me these things were going to happen, I would have listened to me and said, you are crazy, Brian. You don't know what you're talking about. This is impossible. And I don't blame anyone for saying, I don't believe you at all. Believe me, God bless everyone who's listening to me. And I don't blame you at all, because that is just not what we've been taught in Western civilization. Now, there's other religions that really, come and expand that, the destiny and predestination and fate and those type of things. But that's not how we've been taught here in most of Western civilization. That is, you're an individual, you plan out your own life, and that's up to you. And these things happen, then you just got to power through them. And there's a truth to that, because you have your free will to react how you want to in each situation. But to have everything planned, like I'm saying, in each episode, right, when you maybe get divorced or when you get in a car accident or have a major illness, those things are usually pre-planned, and they're pre-planned for your benefit. Now, I have a whole book called The Problem Solution, saying when life gives you problems, those are not problems. Those are classes. You should take that class with as good as attitude you can, and those will help you. Now, so as I was saying, trying to visualize the number of factors, try to visualize just complex, so that there's data. And of course, everything's connected. There's data going all over, right? I even talked in one talk on my YouTube channel, which I recommend everybody should go to my nwspiritism.com, and there's a link to my YouTube channel. And I go through these little 4 or 5, 8 minute things about things like psychometry, where where people will hold like a wedding ring, and they'll see everything that touched that. So you have to think about, we live in this data world where, our thoughts go out all over the universe. Thoughts hit physical objects. Thoughts go, when we pray or meditate, they go up into whatever level of spirits that are looking at us and concerned with our life. And they'll see that, and they'll help direct the next thing. In the answer to our prayers, of course, the answer is not always what you want it to be. Just remember that. So just think of that. We live in this sea of data, right? In the spirit world tells us we only really see 1/8 of what's around us. Like some mediums now can actually see spirits, right? And I talked to one of the mediums when I went to our spiritual center in Rio, and he can see spirits. And in fact, during the Spiritist meeting, after the meeting, they'll talk for like an hour or whatever. And then afterwards, you'll all go and they'll put passes on you, which is a great, you can just feel the energy coming into you. And after that, you drink some water. And he said that as you come into this room, there's a spirit attaches himself to each human, and they'll put you and there'll be like multiple people giving passes. When passes where you pass your hand. They don't touch it, they just kind of pass your hand. The spirit will guide that human to the chair he wants that person to be. And they kind of move, he says they kind of move like robots. They just move like really fast and deliberate. Of course, me being me, next time I had that, I thought, okay, I think I'll go in that chair. But then I tried to change my mind. So I don't know if the spirit world knew I was going to do that in the future. Probably did, because I could see the future. But I tried to trick him. That shows you how I'm not mature yet. So anyway. So there's a small hint of the stratification of complexity when it comes to different types of spirits reincarnating. So we're not all led and monitored as close as other people. So in the book, In the Greater World, psychographed by Francisco C. Xavier, the spirit Andre Luis encounters his grandfather in a low spiritual plane, in the lower zone. He seeks to help his grandfather and realizes that a new life is required to help repair the psychic damage that has been wrought by his grandfather's past actions. And Andre is told that his grandfather will be reincarnated, and Andre asks if he can count on help from his spirit friends. This is what he's told. Of course, since it will be a reincarnation merely for reparatory activities and no involvement in communal interest. Our personal cooperation can be more decisive and immediate. There are many benefactors in this area who provide for a large number of reincarnations in regenerative circles. Let's see if we can examine our brother's future situation. So, this is so interesting. So there's if you are involved in trying to shape the Earth's future, there's a greater level of supervision. So Andre's grandfather will be reborn into extreme poverty so he can experience hard work in order to re-educate his aspirations. And I believe there's two salient points in what I said. The first is the reference to involvement in communal interest, like I just said before. This implies that whenever anyone interconnects with an incarnated spirit who has been sent with a purpose, the ramification of that person's physical life must be analyzed at a higher or more detailed level. Second is that for anyone who is planned to enter society at its fringes or its unseen type of working class stage, the planning is less centralized. Probably the number of factors and events are not as laid out in detail, or possibly less precision in execution, since a greater amount of variability is perfectly acceptable with this person who's not influenced in other things. In other words, the confidence interval for the successive execution is allowed to be lower. Now, let me give an example of my own feeling. Now, I'm not a medium, but sometimes I can feel the presence of spirits. I went to this talk, and it was done by the bank. It was for Tony Blair, who was the Prime Minister of England at a certain time a while ago. And I was sitting pretty close to the front row, and I didn't feel anything. And then, people came in, introduced them, and so forth. And then Tony Blair walked in, and I felt this immense. I don't know what it was. I felt spirit energy. I felt something was there. Probably multiple spirits. I don't know for sure because I'm really like a dead piece of wood when it comes to mediumship. But I said, oh my God, I could feel, how I feel spirits around me is I feel this electrical impulse in my arms. And I'll feel that when I, given passes or I'm at a spiritist meeting, or, someplace like here before I give this talk, sometimes I'll feel it. And it's like, it usually comes like 5 minutes before I start. And it's just like, someone's there putting better thoughts in my own thoughts in my head. So it is really interesting. And I would most likely say that most people who are getting into Spiritism are probably in that higher level of where, okay, in this life, we're going to start telling you what's going on. We're going to start telling you that, heaven isn't just hell or heaven, and you're in purgatory for eternity, which is not true in Spiritism. Everyone's given a chance to learn. We're going to start upping your complexity and your understanding, and hopefully remodel your personality. So it's interesting. So the spirit world has spun an unbelievably complex web of events, where one act affects another, and so on. It is as each thread in a grand tapestry has its own life, and it had to be perfectly fitted with all the other threads that touch it, and to those that touch the threads once removed, and so on. The complexity is really beyond our capability to manage, but not beyond the creator of our universe and God's high lords. There is an example of the spirit world undoing the effect of an accident. This is where I'm thinking that not everything's predestined. There are some random events, and it lies with a fascinating near-death experience. Michael was a boy who, like boys everywhere, was where he shouldn't have been, right? Michael was climbing on a limestone cliff on a frozen day when part of the boulder he was hanging onto suddenly broke free. He and the large rock both fell, and with the boulder landing on top of him. According to Michael's recollection, the stone weighed hundreds of pounds, and he felt that he left his body, and seeing himself, he knew he was dead. But next, Michael encounters the spirit guide. This is what he said. It's like I try these near-death experiences are so interesting, and that's why I've written 2 books about that, because the spirit world, I'm trying to interpret to these people, this is what really was happening. This is why this was happening to you. So this is what Michael says, it recounts in his story. He told me this was an accident. So accidents can't happen. And I could go back if I wanted. I told him by my thoughts, there was no way to make that body work. It was squashed flat, right? Of course, he's a boy. He basically told me that he could make it work again. Did I want to go back? I wanted to know my options. What would happen if I chose to go back? And what would happen if I didn't? No sooner did I think these thoughts, and boom, I was hit with a package of images. It showed in brief what would happen if I didn't go back. I saw my sister get into alcohol and drugs, and her life spun out of control because I wasn't there. I saw my dad commit suicide because of my death shortly after my mom divorced him over the matter of my death. I saw my paternal grandfather wither away and die, his heart broken over my death and my dad's suicide. There were twin blows that destroyed all the joys that he had left in life. The effects went on and on. My mom was sad and heartbroken the rest of her life and so very lonely. And I saw a parade of faces of people I would never meet and whose lives I would have impacted and whose lives would have impacted mine. But now I would never know any of them and they would never know me. The man in the white robe had me with my sister. I always loved my little sister, and for her alone, I would have chosen to come back. But seeing all the pain it would cause everyone else, mom, dad, grandparents, friends, cousins, aunts, uncles, man, I had to go back. Isn't that interesting what he said? Think about this. Michael's spirit guide, or guardian angel, as many call them, was right there in an instant. The spirit guide, as I said before, right? He knew. He could probably see, oh, hey, this is like a quick future, and this accident happened. People who have had NDEs recognize that we live close to the spirit world. They are all around us, watching, guiding, and trying to lead us to become better souls. And so his spirit world was right, a spirit mentor, guardian angel was right there. So, but this is look what Michael saw. And not only could his spirit guide, right? Because he saw him in a white robe, which I've explained before, it's just really the reflection. It's the fact that the reflection of this person was spiritually mature, and he looked kind of white and fuzzy. But it just shows you how close they are, and how how could this person draw the data to show the images to Michael of what would have been? Think of the complexity of how to grab those images, show that to Michael, and go through and just immediately determine the different variations of the future because Michael wasn't there. This is what I'm saying. This is very complex. The complexity of which we are living in is just amazing. And people who have had NDEs recognize we live close to the spirit world. They are all around us watching and trying to lead us to become better souls. But for most of us, the thoughts that spirits or worse ghosts inhabit the same place is a primitive notion and should be discarded. Otherwise, we would demonstrate to the world our ignorance and naivety. But what if these uncivilized people, these cultures before us and around us, who live closer to nature and by no choice of their own possess little material goods, detected a truth about our sphere in the spirit realm that we have lost? And could we, who must be presented with absolute proof of everything, be missing something important right before our eyes? And so Michael, to him, that is a truth, right? An alternative future was shown to Michael. How could this be? Allan Kardec, in the Spirits book, describes the power of a high spirit. He likens it to us here on Earth, walking through a trail in a canyon, not knowing what's the next bend will look like. Whereas the spirit sitting on the mountaintop sees our path, where it will lead, and other paths that may be offered to us. So there's multiple choices. Still, that is easy to say, but how could this be in practice? What type of instantaneous mathematical collections or calculations of probability combined with moving pictures of these possibilities must be processed to present in lifelike simulation a series of future options? Only the presence of a computing apparatus so complex as to make our supercomputers seem like simple calculators can explain what Michael saw. Next, Michael will show what would happen if he chose to return to his physical body. This is what he said. Then came a second package of images, those of what would happen if I went back. I skipped over the obvious. Dad didn't commit suicide. My sister turned out okay. Mom ended up happy. My grandfather went on to beam with pride over his first grandson to attend a university. My grandfather was a legal immigrant from Italy who never made it past the 4th grade, and he treasured education beyond everything. He crowed like a proud rooster when his kids graduated from high school, and I became the first of his grandkids to attend a prestigious university. But what I focused on in the second package was that I would pay a price for going back. I knew that I would walk again, that all I had lost would be restored, but only temporarily. In my later life, perhaps 10 to 15 years after the accident, I would suffer pain, extreme pain, and it would affect me for the rest of my life. I chose to come back. He smiled as if he knew I would pick the harder path because of how I felt for my family and friends. There was a snap and a pop, and I was back in my body. It was filled with crackling electricity, like sounds and feelings. I had no breath, no air, and this huge rock was choking up all air. I grabbed the small end of the tear near my nose with my one free left hand. My right arm was pinned under the rock and rolled the thing off me like it was made of paper mache. So, what's he telling us? Michael's paraspirit, the connection we have from our spirit to our physical bodies, was reattached to his broken body. From the second option presented, one can see how positive influence have far-reaching and significant effects on other people's lives. We should never underestimate our own power to help others. It could be little things. While things may appear to us to be small and unimportant, one never knows how our action can be translated into helping or harming another person's life and relations of that person. That's why no one should ever commit suicide. You're not just harming yourself. You're harming not only the people around you in the present, you're harming the people in the future. Michael was next transported to the hospital where he experienced the second phase of his NDE. This is what he said. The next thing I know, I'm back in the operating room where the surgeon is working frantically to save my life. And as he works at massaging my heart, I found myself drifting away. And the further I drifted, the darker the room got, and the further away his voice sounded. Found myself well above the operating theater where I should have been on the floor above that room or outside looking on the roof. But I wasn't. Instead, I was floating in the entrance to a tunnel or vortex. I was sucked into it, and then when my adventure really began, I ended up with a life review and was escorted around the other side by a being who was my guardian angel teacher, whom I came to call Professor. But he had an incredible sense of humor, and I say he with tongue-in-cheek because he was neither a he nor a she. And that's, of course, because probably that guardian angel is a higher spirit. And he probably couldn't see it. Probably was very unfocused because the higher spirits reflect the love of God, reflect the love of the spirit universe. And that's why you can't see them very well if you are a lower level, not as mature spirit. So what do we learn from this? Michael suffered an accident, a true random event. The spirituality, God, determined that if it could repair the damage done and set the train of future events back on the right track. Therefore, they used their considerable power to heal Michael, to bring him back to the state of health before a large rock fell on top of him. Michael's guardian angel came to him almost immediately after the accident. This corresponds to what the high spirit Zapdial. Yes, well, okay, Matthew, you're right. Or because they have a balance of male and female energies. You're absolutely right. And that's another whole talk as far as the balance, because another interesting thing on the spirit world is they've told us, and I've said this in other talks, but we have been split into two sexes, male and female, here on Earth. But it doesn't have to be. So we can learn aggressive and passive male, aggressive and passive female attributes. So we are, just by being married, by going out with, for male talking to a female or a female talking to a male, it's like we are learning things. We are learning about active and passive in the female point of view and active and passive in the male point of view. And as you get to a higher and higher spirit, you combine all those things. In fact, you read a lot about, and actually NDE said the same thing, is Jesus is like a combination of all of it, right? Christ is, he may appear male, but he's really a combination of all those attributes. So yes, Matthew, you are absolutely correct. So Zabdiel tells us that we are never out of sight. And this is what he said. Thus, he said to Vale Owen, thus preserving contact with you, we maintain and ensure our guardianship, that it be continuous and unceasing, and our watchfulness in that it shall in no wise fail on your behalf. For here and throughout the spheres between us and you are contrivances by which intelligence is sent from one sphere to those beyond, and when necessity require it, we enjoin others to carry out some mission to you, or if the occasion so requires it, we come to earth ourselves, as I have done at this time. So what's he telling us? Not only is a spirit able to come to his or her assigned student on our physical plane, but Zabdiel also speaks of other methods of guiding us remotely. So now he's giving more examples. But further still, in addition to this, we are able each to come in contact with his own charge direct in certain ways and to influence events from our own place. Thus, you will understand that the whole economy of the Creator, through its manifold spheres of light, is unified in action and correlated, so that there is no part is but influenced by all those other parts. And what you do on earth not only registered in the heavens, but has effect on our minds and thoughts, and so on our lives. What is that all telling us? It's what I said before. Everything is connected. Everything flows from thought. While we may think we are unable to receive feelings and ideas from others, we certainly do. Some of us are more affected than others, like empath, right? But deep within our frame of mind, alters through the radiant power of others around us and from afar. Our actions, our most inner feelings has the force as well. For as others send out waves that penetrate us, we do the same. Spirits pick up the signals that pour forth from our mind, and spirits connect us to pay attention to our changing states. Zabdiel alerts us to the importance of controlling ourselves, our thoughts. And this is my theme and everything. I say this over and over again. If you can start controlling your thoughts, not just your words, right? When your mother said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. You've got to internalize that even further and then say, if you can't think anything nice, change it and then think of it nice. So Zabdiel alerts us to the importance of controlling ourselves, our thoughts. And if you can do this while you're on earth, that is more important than being a billionaire or whatever. This is pure gold to go back to the spirit world with. This is what he says. Be therefore a very careful mind and will, for your doing in thought and your doing in word and your doing in act are all in great import, not alone to those you see and touch around you, but also to those around you unseen and untouched by you, but who see and touch you constantly and often. Not these alone, but those who go about their business in their own sphere are so affected. It is so in my own, I know, and how much higher I do not hazard to say, mean higher in spheres. But were you to ask me, I would reply that your doings are multiplied by transmission through the spheres of light by 70 times 7, and that no end is found to their journey within the ken of man or angel. For I little doubt, if that at all, that they find out at last the very heart of God. Be ye therefore perfect, because your Father who is in the heavens of the heavens is perfect, and no imperfect thing can find acceptance and approval to enter where he is in his awful beauty. That's really the key item, right? You're here to improve yourself. You're here to become perfect. Now, no one expects anybody to become perfect at all in one lifetime. That's why the whole concept of heaven or hell, and that you could be in hell forever or you'd be in heaven forever, doesn't make sense when you understand the spirit world. That's why reincarnation is so important. That's why predestination is so important in your life, so you can be led to learn the things that you were lacking or did wrong in the previous life. Nothing that happens to you or anybody in this world is done because someone wants to punish you. It's all done because they want to help you. Zabdiel has laid out our mission on earth in no uncertain terms. We must better ourselves and rid our minds of harmful emotions and thoughts. Let no one think that this isn't a tremendously difficult task, for everything around us conspires to stop us from making progress. Like an addict who is surrounded by others of the same addiction, and also spirits of the same addiction, who is constantly reinforced to stay stoned with the crowd because the mob can't conceive of any alternative lifestyle. To pull away from this group takes enormous effort and discipline. Starting with small baby steps is the correct process. The spirit world doesn't demand a drastic alteration overnight, but a little progress, forward motion in the path to love and light is appreciated. In fact, when the desires of a person who fervently wishes to improve their spirituality is detected, the spirit realm reaches out and assists. Help is always around the corner. One just has to commence trying. So I hope this has been good for you. And please share this on other Facebook sites. Please tell your friends about Kardec Radio. I also don't want to forget everybody that Kardec Radio you can get on your Android or Apple phone. Go to the App Store or the Play Store and put in Kardec Radio, and then also tell people about the YouTube channel. Get people, tell them that there's a lot of information about Spiritism. Check out what I'm talking about. Everything I talked about is right here. How we are guided by spirits. And again, I think I forgot to say in the front is Allan Kardec's books. The Spirits book and the Gospel According to Spiritism, other ones. You don't have to buy them. You can get them on PDF. And I recommend it. And that's how I got into it. I didn't pay for them at first. I bought them later because it was this little revelatory. I said, oh, I need this. So I'm going to read it over and over again. So yes. And then click on his picture in my site, nwspiritism.com. It'll take you to the EDICI bookstore. Many books are there. Or you can get them, of course, you can go to amazon.com, of course, get them on Kindle or paperback. You can get all my books on Kindle or paperback, or go to the bookstore and ask for them. And of course, they will help and order them for you. So all that information is there. And what I'm trying to do is I'm not telling you, oh, you have to do this or you're going to be damned forever. No. Look, you can do anything you want to. You're always going to get more chances. I'm just trying to help you put information in front and let you look at it. And hopefully for yourself, and that's what the spirits tell us, is hopefully, oh, good. So Matthew, I got the Spirits book and Genesis According to Spiritism on my phone. That's perfect. That's what I did too. I have that on the PDF. I use it on the iPhone. You can, when you're on the bus or whatever, lunchtime, you can read that. And every time, it's interesting because every time you read it, those words kind of mean, and you get more and more knowledge. The words kind of mean more to you. I know I've read the Spirits book over and over, and I've read like Chico Xavier's, the Andre Luis series. I'm going through it like the fourth time or whatever. I can't remember, but it's like, you learn more. It's just amazing. So what I'm trying to say is we're just laying this information out for you. Each person has to do their own journey of, do they believe in the spirit world or not? Do they believe there's something more than just their, this life, this physical universe? And I don't blame anybody for believing that way. That's what our culture says, right? Our culture is almost, very materialistic. And the spirits have told that to the Reverend G. Vale Owen, told that to other people, is we are going through a really high materialistic phase right now. That pendulum will swing back. And we'll balance that. We're not meant, our society has to go through a period of materialism because that helped create technological advances. But we can't just, do that all the time. We can't think that buying a new house and the best car is more important than helping our family and helping our neighbors and helping ourselves and changing ourselves. Anyway, I just want to thank everyone for being here. God bless everyone. And just, explore Spiritism. You can, whatever other doctrine or religion to help you understand the spirit world. That's wonderful. God bless all of you. And I just want to thank everyone for listening to me tonight. And goodbye.